Hello. As Martin said, I was just traveling a few hours from Chiang Mai to get here. We're doing an exhibition in Chiang Mai that I curated for the U.S. Embassy, and it was 180 photographers, 180 photographs, 90 from photographs of Thailand, photographed by American photographers, and 90 photos of U.S. photographed by Thai photographers. And the exhibition has been traveling all around Thailand, and I had a great fortune to actually go to schools and be able to speak to the students around Thailand, and it's been a really great pleasure. And so I was very lucky to be in the neighborhood and be here this evening with all of you. It seems like a great experience here, and it's a great festival. But what an amazing thing that Josh does, huh? What a daring thing to climb all those rocks and go through all the caves. Sitting there, I was getting a chill. It was amazing. Martin asked me to talk a little bit about who I am and what I'm doing and why am I in Thailand and why did I make my home to be Bangkok from Los Angeles. So I want to take you quickly through where I came from and a little bit of my life and what I've done so far in the photography world. I got my first introduction to photography when I was 7 years old, when I had my portrait taken. I was born in Iran, in Tehran, Iran, and it was customary to have portraits done every year. And that was my first time that I had actually had taken a portrait for my school. And when I was having this portrait done, I had the photographer actually took me and showed me the process of photography. The fact that you could stand in front of me, hide behind a black cloth, and take a photograph, and then take this piece of negative, develop it in 20, 30 minutes, and make a print while he showed me how the process works. It was very, very amazing. That was, I think, where my passion for photography started and the magic of photography, as for most of you. I started becoming my official portrait photographer for my family. I borrowed my aunt's Rolleiflex and started photographing the people in my family. I was annoying most of the people, but I had my own little light set up, and I had created my own little dark room. Nothing like this, but I built my first enlarger from a wood enlarger and put a little incandescent light and a lens in there. And nobody told me about the heat, wood and heat. So eventually, after a couple of hours, it burned out. But later I worked at a photo lab in Iran and learned a lot about the technique and how you really do create a photograph. When I was 18, I moved to Los Angeles to learn more about photography, and I was very interested in cinematography as well. So I came to Hollywood to learn photography. And I came from a very poor family, so there was 8 of us in a family, and I think my father was making about $100 a month to feed 8 kids. So he saved 3 months, and so he sent me to America with $300 and a small Persian rug, just in case if I get in trouble, I could sell it. So I came to Los Angeles. I went to school in Orange County, and I became a staff photographer for Golden West College, and studied advertising photography and did a lot of product shots. These were my best friends for a few years. A lot of products that I photographed, but I really wanted to be a fashion photographer. I was a young guy in my 20s, and I wanted to meet models. I wanted to be out there looking at beauty rather than looking at packaging all day long. So I had 2 choices. This was in the early 80s, and I could go to New York and assist a major photographer, which was really hard because most of the photographers had already many assistants, and it was very hard to get to the door of any of any of the studios. Or I could start my own magazine, the first fashion magazine in Los Angeles, because in the early 80s, there was no fashion in Los Angeles. Everything was just T-shirts and jeans. So when I told people I wanted to start a fashion magazine, people were always laughing. They said, "What fashion? There's really no fashion houses in LA." But I didn't listen, and I started my own fashion magazine with the goal that I would be a photographer for my own magazine, that I would hire myself. And when I started the magazine, I went to many people, many photographers and publishers and printers, and trying to explain to them that I want to publish the first fashion magazine, and with a very broken English. So everybody is basically saying, like, what is this guy talking about? He's talking about wanting to do these things, but we don't really understand what he's talking about. And what I wanted to do was create a venue for an outlet for all the photographers that were in Los Angeles and Orange County and around the LA area to be able to showcase their work. After the first issue of the magazine that came out, finally I was able to get most of the photographers to actually pay their own way, pay for their own film, and pay for their own expenses of printing. And most of the writers actually paid all their own ways. Everybody came together through like a community, and we created the first fashion magazine in Los Angeles called View. The best thing that happened at the View, I realized that I was really a lousy photographer, but I was a great art director. I realized my emphasis was mostly in art directions and photo editing than it was in photography. So I closed my studio, packed all my camera gears, and started my career as an art director. A few years later, I sold View magazine. View magazine won many awards, was distributed throughout Europe and America. Many major photographers in Los Angeles started their careers by shooting for View magazine. And years later, I sold it, and I started the Photofolio magazine. Photofolio magazine was a photography magazine that showcased only photography, and it was mostly for me a place where I was able to like show the photographers that I really like, and purely photo magazine and no advertising. And Photofolio became a permanent collection of Library of Congress. Again, we won many awards for Photofolio. While I was publishing Photofolio, I worked as an art director for over 10 years for Rizzoli Corporation, where I traveled between Milano and Los Angeles and did most of their photo layouts in Los Angeles. While I was doing all the stuff, the AIDS epidemic, and they started like killing a lot of my friends. Almost every week, I went to a funeral in Los Angeles, from fashion industry people to photographers to models. Every week there was a funeral. Every week we find out about one of our friends that had passed away. And I wanted to do something to help this. And I wanted to do something more importantly to create some kind of awareness that people realize that there is this disease, there is a problem. Whereas our administration at that point, President Reagan, refused to talk about the major problem that the world was facing. So I decided single-handedly that I would start one of the first foundations for AIDS, and I had a handful of photographs that I've collected it through the magazines that I had, and photographers gave me, and I bought a few pieces. And I said, I don't really have much money, but I'm willing to put my photographs and auction it off. Whatever money it raises, we will spend, create some sort of awareness for AIDS. Before I knew, the word got out that the guy with the funny English that started a couple of magazines and now is doing an AIDS foundation. And before long, within 1 month, we had over 300 photographs, and we raised $100,000. First time ever an auction benefit, a photographic auction benefit that raised that kind of money. And all from selling photography. And the important part was not only we raised money for a great cause, that we have raised over a few $1 million so far, but also we created one of the first collectors community in Los Angeles. Before ADs, we had one gallery in Los Angeles, and we had barely anyone collecting photography that lived in LA. By coming here and buying photographs for $200, $300, you could buy an Avedon for $500, you can buy an Irving pen from the auction for $700, $800. It started this community of collectors. And they looked forward to any auctions that we had every year, because that was the place that you could actually come and pick up a few pieces and just enjoy. Barely anybody bought pieces for collecting back then. So we'd established a small collectors group in Los Angeles. And as a result, there was more and more galleries that started opening up in LA. Focus on AIDS raised $2.5 million to date. And we have a hospital, AIDS hospital in India, and hospices in Tanzania. We have clinics in Myanmar, Cambodia, and we fund many of the clinics and in the United States. And the years after, I decided that we need to have something a little more for photography world. I wanted to be able to, throughout the magazines and throughout my career as an art director, I got to hire people like Helmut Newton, Avedon, and Bruce Weber, and Bruce Davidson, and Eugene, not the Smith, but the other Eugene. But many of these photographers that I got to hire, and I got to know them, and I realized the great stories behind all these photographs that they have taken. I realized these people have this amazing story that we will never ever hear, and the next generation will never know who they were, and who are these guys that are created, these masters of photography. Who are these masters? Who are the people that took these images that changed the world in many ways, to change the history in many ways? So I went around and started telling everyone that I wanted to start an Academy Award for photography. And of course, everybody said, "Oh, not that guy with the funny English again." Every time I started something, everybody says like, "Oh no, not you again," because I've always came to and talked about things that were like bigger than life. And I said, "I want to do this. I want to do it in Oscar style. I want to hire someone from Oscar to put this together. I want to do something grand." And most people talk like, photography doesn't need a red carpet event. Photography doesn't need glamour. You know, we don't want to be sitting in the same room with a fine art photographer didn't want to sit in the room with the advertising photographer. Advertising photographer didn't want to be in the same room with the sports photographer. And so we had this community that kind of divided. If you're a wedding photographer and the guy is a fine art photographer, they would roll his eyes and I wanted to bring all these together. I wanted to bring in together a community that loves photography. Doesn't matter what you take, doesn't matter how you take, doesn't matter what you use. And I just want to create the Lucy Awards. And we went through 500-600 names. I put together a committee, and we came up with the name Lucy because Lucy, from the Latin word of luce, means light. So we wanted to create our Lucy Awards, the goddess of light. And I want to show you a little clipping of the first year.
Make the world of photography more important.
Yeah, somebody does care about this. Merci beaucoup.
To be recognized for what you do is always wonderful.
So before I was doing the Lucy Awards, I was working with two of other friends that we were putting together a Hollywood Award, and was one of the and it's still existing, and one of the top awards in Los Angeles in the movie industry. And so I thought it would be great to create the same format for the photography awards. So we gave awards to not only to the photographers, but also all the people that help making the image, including magazine editors, including hair and makeup artists, including photo lab assistant and photo lab, great printers. So we gave a huge awards, a group of awards to almost everyone in our community, not only photographers and collectors. And then the year after, the Lucy from Los Angeles, from the House of Golden Globe, where we had the first year, moved to Lincoln Center in New York, where we had it for many years. I think the first Lucy Awards, I remember the editorial that we got through the photography community sent a really big shock wave through the photography community. Because everybody expected some small event with a few people and most photographers wearing their beige jackets with their lenses hanging out. And I succeeded to put all these photographers in tuxedo, clean them up, force them to rent a tuxedo, come there, sit for 3 hours, 1,500 people in Los Angeles, come together and celebrate photography. And I think that was a big accomplishment with, as you saw, a big list of people that helped put this together. I wanted to take you quickly through the last few years of the Lucys. And the names that you see here are I mean, most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with all these names. They're really the masters of our craft. Unfortunately, most of the people that have received our awards they were all in their 80s and 90s, and they're no longer with us. But I was happy to actually have the moment to actually be able to sit with these people, look at their work, and choose. Because every person that received the award from us, we've created 2 to 5 minutes documentary about their work. So this allowed me to get together with some of these amazing guys and just sit down and hear their stories. And I think that was the biggest payback for me for investing a lot of money in putting this event together. To be nominated for the Lucy Awards, you had to have a minimum 30 to 40 years of dedication to photography. And most of these people that you see here, they are in their 70s and 80s, and they have done an amazing job of dedicating their life to the craft. And as you see, every year we give awards to different fields in photography, different aspects, and different. So you have an advertising photographer, you have a sports photographer, you have fine art photographer, portrait photographer. Eugene Richard was the one that I was thinking. Every time I think about Eugene Richard, I automatically think about Eugene Smith, and I mixed the two up. I think Erwin is one of the youngest photographers that won our award. And this is an event that was produced with a fraction of what it cost for any major event of its kind, because it's all labor of love. Everyone comes, everyone spends their time, everyone gives all they can, because that we all share the same love of photography and the same passion for photography. So one of the things that I do now, because we gave it mostly European and American photographers that have a long list of accomplishment at the Lucy. So I have been traveling around the world and finding some of these masters that are not well known in the Western world, in China, in Thailand, in Turkey, and all over the world. I've been traveling and trying to find some of these masters and introduce them to the Western world. So the foundation, the Lucy Foundation, basically, besides putting the Lucy Awards together, has some of the some other events that we do throughout the year. We have a lecture series in Los Angeles and New York. We do a portfolio reviews in Los Angeles. We have a scholarship that we give $10,000 to the best proposal for a new story, a new documentary. We have a project LA that we do an outdoor projections in Los Angeles and New York, and soon in Bangkok, I hope. And most importantly, we have a month of photography that we created in Los Angeles. It's a month-long event in photography. The first year we showed the work of 160 photographers to celebrate the 160th birthday of Los Angeles. And every year we have anywhere from 50 to 60 exhibitions all throughout LA. IPA is a part of the Lucy Awards, the part that actually promotes and discovers new photographers, new professionals and amateur photographers. I'm going to show you some of the winners of the professional categories. The prize for IPA is up to $22,500, different prizes for professionals and amateurs. And then 2003 was Christopher Fraser Smith, a very well-known advertising photographer from London. Timothy White is one of the greatest photographers in America in advertising. And Jim Fiskus is also one of the top photographers. And one of the things that Jim is very well known for, he creates a trend that everyone follows. I believe early on there was a Photoshop filter that was after Jim's work. And Greg Ludwig is a National Geographic photographer, won these awards for his work in Chernobyl's disaster. In 2007, Massimo won the award for his work of when you see a nice, gentle, sweet guy that actually gets into these situations to be able to photograph, it's amazing. Brent Sturton, really, this image has changed a lot in the world. It was really shocked the world. I think it was Newsweek that published this after we gave him the award, and it really forced a lot of people to take a deep look at what's happening in Uganda, and the UN came together mainly because of these photographs, and they tried to create laws to prevent from this happening again. Nadav Kandar is one of the highest paid photographers in the world right now. He's a top draw photographer. Not too long ago, I asked him to do a shoot for me, and the budget was $150,000, and he refused because it wasn't enough, and it was a 2-day shoot. Jim Krantz is also an advertising photographer. He does mostly corporate reports, annual reports. Majid Saidi in 2011 from Iran won these awards for his work in Afghanistan. He's one of the top photojournalists in the Middle East, and we love the way he showed a little more human side and a little more softer side to digest the Afghanistan victims of mine. And then in 2012, Elinka from Mexico won our award, a completely unknown photographers. I personally probably follow the career of over 400 or 500 photographers around the world. And to see someone that is not on my radar as far as photography, that hasn't won all major competitions, it was amazing. And she's now one of the big, busy, she moved to London and now is one of the top photojournalists, young photojournalists. And this year, Brooks Kraft won our award for following President Obama. This is one of my 2 favorite presidents of the United States. Years after, I decided that I wanted to do something really challenging. I have a lot of friends. I spend a lot of time in Paris and in France. As most of you probably know, there's the biggest photography festival in the world is in south of France called Arles Photo Festival, and is the mother of all festivals. It's the festival that has been the model for all other festivals that I have created and all other people have created. I wanted to create something in Paris because I was spending a lot of time in France. So I went to France and got a group of my photography friends together, and I said, I want to start the Paris Photography Prize. And most of you that are familiar or are French, you know the first word they would say is impossible, impossible. So I wanted to make it possible. I said, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. They said, no, it's not possible. So I started a Paris Photography Prize, and I was surprised that the city of Paris would actually allow me to use the name. But I went there with so much enthusiasm and so much passion, they couldn't say no to me. And the PX3 is 8 years old, and most of those people that have said no to me, they're all on my board now, and they're all big flag carriers for the Paris Photography Awards. And we have a Farmani gallery that we started about 10 years ago in New York and Los Angeles, and now we have a gallery in Bangkok. And I invite everyone that ever comes and visits visits Bangkok to come and see us. And I created this rooftop gallery mostly to promote things that I like, mostly to show photographers from anywhere in the world. And I'm hoping to get more and more Thai photographers. Lillian showed in our gallery not too long ago, and Ryan's been there many times, I think. And so it's a fun space that shows work by anyone. There could be a very famous photographer, or it could be a completely unknown photographer. Anything that we like, put on our walls. I got a chance to be on the New York Times cover years ago, and then so I want to now take you to a quick. I'm speaking really fastly because I know we don't have much time. The tour of the world. These are photographers from different countries that have sent their work to us. We receive about 20,000 images every year from around the world. And one of the pleasures that I have in my life is to sit behind my computer, and through not only the competitions and festivals that I've created around the world, but also through all the competitions that I judge, to sit and see the most intimate things that people send in to us, to be able to experience what's going on in every corner of the world just through the eyes of another photographer. Now, some of these are just not necessarily photographers photographing their country. Is a photographer from Argentina. Okay. I don't want to get everyone dizzy. This was a campaign of veterans that run in Australia, in Austria. By looking at these images from these countries for past 10, 15 years, it's a great study of what people are interested, how people's interest changes from one year to another year, how whatever affects them that year that we get majority of submissions from. Like in past in China, we always received images of suffering and images of really dark images. And the last few years, all we receive is fashion, beauty images from China. You haven't seen much difference in coming out of Eastern Europe. We get the same dark images and same suffering images most of the time, even in the fine art photography and photojournalism from. In Greece, in the last few years, most of the photographs that submitted by different photographers were all about the uprising and the immigration conflicts. Hong Kong, we always receive beautiful images of the great life. In India, we always get great, colorful images. And recently, we've been getting, for the last few years, we're getting a lot of submissions from Thailand. I put the name of the photographers here because I thought some of you would be interested to see. As more and more Thai photographers traveling around the world and photographing, and a lot of them studying overseas and now coming back to Thailand and doing a great job in photography. So I want to talk about a little bit about the business of photography. Why there's so many photographers in the world, and why some people make it big and some people will always stay small. There's 6 billion photographers just on Earth alone. I don't know whatever on the other planets are. There's 162,000 professional photographers in America that making their living from photography. And the highest price for paid that ever paid for photography so far is over $4 million. And I'm sure everyone sees this image of Andrea Greski. There's a triptych of 99-cent store. So when I show this to the students around the world and talk about what they can make, I always tell them that they should go home and ask their father, and how much do you make a month? And look at their father's eyes and say, if you send me to photography school, I could make $4 million by selling one print. And I tell them to entice their father to tell them that if he can be retired, he can never have to ever work again if he sends them to photography school. And the kids love that. But these are some of the top photography prices in the world. You can see on the 19 Ansel Adams still sold for over $600,000. So the price of photography has gone up majorly. I started my collection in early 80s, and the pieces that I bought for a few $100s, the Irving pens and Salgados and all the images that I bought for a fraction of the price, now is worth 100 times more, if not more. So the photography was and is a great investment. And you never know Irving pen will become Irving pen. I didn't know 20 some years ago that Irving pen pieces will sell. Something that I bought for $200 will be sold for $300,000-$400,000. So but I always bought things that I love. I collected things that I really meant to me. I mean, now my collection has gone a little bit out of hand. I have over 30,000 images in my collection. So some of the collections that I have, I bought someone's whole collections and didn't get the chance to see all of it. But I have been able to put together one of the largest private collections of photography in Los Angeles. And Getty Museum recently called my collections one of the most important collections of portrait photography. And all I did was bought for one reason, and mostly early on in my collections, I wanted to have every masters of photography in my collection, and I wanted to create a museum in Los Angeles that houses this collection, and that was the reason that I started collecting. And many of these pieces I bought from around the world, and many were actually donated to my collections, and people gifted to my collection. One of the things that now I do going around the world, I'm interested in collecting people's photo albums, and I'm hoping to do a major exhibition of unknown photographers. So I've been traveling around the world and buying through all the little swap meets and weekend markets and buying albums of albums of families. And what I've noticed, and I'm buying it from one series run, mostly 1950s and 1960s. And what I've noticed that from all around the world, from Cuba to Finland to Turkey, wherever I bought these images, they're all very, very similar in style and life. Even in 1950s, before the internet was born, before the age of communication. And it's fascinating to see how everyone lived in those periods. Now, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Everything I've done always has been because I was passionate about. I started 15 companies, many photo festivals around the world that I create and let the people locally run it. Mostly going around the world, talking about photography, talking about something that is really passionate to me, and preaching photography like is my religion, and getting people and students excited about photography. And I hope I've done a little bit of creating some kind of excitement for everyone that is not a photographer to get a camera and create some great images. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hossein. And any question from the floor, please? Okay, we have one question. Okay.
What are your plans in Thailand and Bangkok?
Well, there's I don't know if my fiancée is here. I'm getting married in May 2nd to a Thai girl. She was here someplace. I think she's bored with my speeches, so she's hiding there. Professionally, we are looking for another space for gallery. So rooftop gallery is my experimental space, but I'm looking for a more professional gallery. And with Mr. Manet and Piatet, is that right? From RMA Gallery, we're starting the Bangkok Photo Festival in November of 2014. So there's a lot of hope, and one of the things that I'm really hoping to do is to bring some of these people that I've met throughout my life, the masters of photography, to Bangkok. And recently I had a really exciting job. I got hired by a Turkish tourism authority to change the image of Turkey, to bring in a new image to Turkey, because all the advertising for the tourism was all these highly retouched photos of commercial photographs of the city, the country. So I went and convinced them. I said, if you want me to help you, you have to allow me to bring in some documentary photographers, some war photographers, some young unknown photographers, and known photographers. I want to bring a group of 6 to 8 and possibly 10 photographers from around the world here to Turkey, travel around, and we're going to document your country like it's supposed to be. So first they were like unsure because it was a huge budget, $50-60 million that they spend on advertising, and but when they saw my passion about photography and how these names can actually change, they allowed me to do that. So I hired Jim and Steve and Douglas Kirkland and a few other lesser known photographers to travel. And we've been traveling for the past 6 months through Turkey and photographing some of the never seen before probably places. And so I would love to do that at some point in Thailand as well. So I've been in touch with the tourism authority and trying to get something a little more documentary style to promote the country. But most importantly, I'm really excited about the festival that is coming up.
Any other questions? We still have a bit of time. Yes, please.
I want to ask, what was the first photo you ever bought? And what was the collection you began?
It's hard to remember what I firstly bought. I think it was the first thing that I got was a group of photographs that Herr Britz gifted to me on my birthday. And Douglas Kirkland, the photographer that photographed Marilyn Monroe, is very famous for that. Every year for my birthday, he gave me a print. And those prints are worth a lot of money now, thank God. But one of the most important thing was like the image that stuck with me. As I said, I have over 30, God knows how many thousand in my collection that I haven't even counted yet. But there was a riot in Los Angeles. I don't know if people from LA remember, and you remember the riot. And my office was in an area near there where the riot was. The police came and said, "You have 5 minutes to evacuate." I look at my wall, full of photographs of Cartier-Bresson and every major photographer you can imagine on my big wall. And I looked in there, it's like, what is it that I couldn't live without? What is it that I can walk away with one photograph? I have 5 minutes to choose. Look at my wall. There was a Lartigue, a blind man playing violin in a sports car. I just walked on out. I said, this is the most irreplaceable things in my life, and everything else can be replaced. And we had many computers, and the police was saying, like, are you going to take some of your computers, some of the backups, some of this? And I said, no, that's all I want. And that's the photographs that travels with me. Yeah.
Right?
So in Asia digital photography, how can you describe how can investment in photography can retain value at the same time you can recreate it?
That's a great question. Because a few years ago, a major collector in New York dumped all his photographs that I bought that was created digitally, all these inkjet prints. And what we promote, I believe that we promote creativity, not the tools, not how you take pictures, not how you produce. As long as you have an image that lasts, that you have some sort of archival process that would last. We, in the gallery business, don't really care if you take that picture with your iPhone, you take that picture with the most expensive camera, is it film, is it digital? It doesn't really matter. All I would care that creativity, that style that you have, and that signature that you have. When we show in our gallery, we invest in artists. We don't just give an exhibition. We invest in people, we invest in their careers. We want to make sure that someone that I show in my gallery has a history, that I can, if my collectors love his work and likes his work, there's another 10 body of work that I can show them. And I want to make sure they're committed to photography. Because if I invest in a photographer and then he becomes a carpenter or becomes a plumber and gives up photography, all my investment is gone. So the career of the person is much more important to me than how they shoot and how. And to be honest with you, I was a very bit early on because most of my collection is it's older collections and antique photographs, and I was really hesitating about buying digital prints. And I was like everybody else was like, was this photoshopped? Is this? Is it really photographed? Did you really take this? This is manufactured, or is it real? But then you realize that none of that really matters. If I look at a photo and I enjoy it, if I look at an image and I really like it, it doesn't matter how it was created. All that has to do with technique, and photographers can sit together and talk about technique. Galleries don't care about technique. As long as you're not a photojournalist and you're manipulating the images, then you're fine. And we don't really care how you produce it, how you print it, how you come to that conclusion to make that print. It's all about your creativity that we're interested. Thank you.